What's up, Challenge? Thank you guys for having me. This is fun. I've been stoked about this for quite a while. When David asked me, I didn't take very long to say yes. Very honored to have this opportunity to come and hang out with you guys this evening. And I was even more excited when I found out that what the theme was going to be on the book of Proverbs. I love Proverbs. I think hands down is probably my favorite book in the Bible. I just love the just practical application to living life. Really, it's just like this guidebook of just everything about life, whether it be leadership or money or work or diligence, whatever it is, it's just super practical. And I love just the way that, like most of the Proverbs, if you're spending time reading it, kind of contrasts like this, wise people live this way, foolish people live this way. And it just was a very easy thing for me to understand. And another reason I really love Proverbs, it's actually the book of the Bible that helped me develop the discipline for reading in the Bible on a daily basis. When I was early on in my Christian walk, a friend of mine kind of saw how I was wired. I was kind of into leadership and things like that, and kind of made this connection with me that there are 31 chapters in Proverbs, and there's some months have 31 days, and that I would just read the chapter that corresponded with that day of the month, and it was an easy thing for me to do, and I did that kind of over and over and over again for a while until I developed the practice of it, and so it was a very helpful thing for me. But based on all the topics I could have chosen to teach about tonight, and there's lots that I really, really like, I actually chose to talk about and focus on speech and on the power of our words. And more so, the reason I did it is because it's an area that I need help with. It's an area that I struggle with quite frequently. And it's caused me, my words have caused me a lot of grief in my life. And I'm in this journey of getting wiser and learning how to use the power of my words to bless people. And so in a sense, I have been on a journey as I've been prepping for this message. And I'm going to take you on that journey as we continue tonight. And you guys ready? Let's pray first. God, we thank you so much for your goodness, and that we get to spend this time together, and that we get to just pull out these nuggets of wisdom that exist in your word. And particularly as we spend time tonight just talking about the wisdom of the power of our words. And Lord, I just pray that you would speak through me, God, that you would use my words to speak your truth and bless people tonight. And just grateful that we get to be here. Pray this in your holy name. Amen. Okay. Have you guys ever stopped to consider how many words we actually use in a day? There was a study recently, well, not so recently, 2013, the University of Maryland's medical school did this study, and they found that women speak 20,000 words a day on average, and men speak 7,000 words a day on average. That's quite a difference, ladies. My wife likes to call it, I'm getting my words in. She has a quota, I think, to meet every day. And so quite frequently when I get up in the mornings and have coffee, I'm drinking my coffee and she's starting to get her quota in, which is great. I love those times together. But whether we speak 7,000 words or 20,000 words a day, what really matters isn't the quantity, but the quality, right, of the words that we speak. And here's something else that might surprise you. Scientists have done some research and have found that positive and negative words, when we hear them out loud, can actually change the way our brains are wired. It's a trip. And so, if I walk up and say, Becca, you look amazing, I think you're amazing, I'm actually rewiring your brain right now. So it's important when we think about the things that we say, right? And so, you guys have probably heard sayings like, actions speak louder than words, the pen is mightier than the sword. Does anybody else have any others that kind of are in this vein of words? There you go. That's a good one. Yeah. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, right? There's a variety of these sayings that kind of are phrases around words. And really what these sayings do kind of remind us of something that the Bible emphasizes over and over and over again, is that our words have immense power. And so I'm in the words business. That's actually how I make my living. I make my living crafting words in such a way that compels people to action. And In life, the right word spoken or written can really have a powerful effect. A single sentence can change our mood, it can alter a decision, and it can even transform a life. And the Bible contains literally hundreds of verses across both the Old and New Testament that address our speech and the power of our words. And the book of Proverbs is really packed with a lot of those. And so what does this tell us? I think this is what this tells. It shows that God really cares deeply about how we communicate, that he places great importance on our words because they really are. They're a reflection of our hearts. Our words are a reflection of our hearts. And so today I'm going to dive into what the Bible, particularly Proverbs, says about the power of words. And we're going to explore like four main themes from Proverbs on this topic. And I'm just going to give them to you now. They're also in your notes. But we're going to talk about the power of words and how our words can bring life or death. We're going to talk about the value of restraint, knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. The impact on relationships and how our words affect our interactions with others. And then wisdom in speech, like choosing our words carefully and speaking with discernment. And for each of these things, we'll look at Proverbs teaches, kind of how it applies to our lives, and then we'll have kind of an action step that we'll consider with each one of these and kind of how we can put it into practice. So let's start with the power of words. Let's start with, and also with one of the most kind of well-known verses that kind of relate to this. In Proverbs 18:21, it says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits." Think about that for a second. Death and life in the power of the tongue. I mean, every time we open our mouths, we're making a choice. We're making a choice to speak life or death. So now, what does this mean to speak life? What does that mean? I think speaking life means offering words that build up, that encourage, that nourish others. Proverbs 15:4 says, "A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit." A gentle word can be like water, really like water to a thirsty soul. But words that tear down or criticize or spread negativity, they really are like poison. And they break the spirit, leaving people hurt and discouraged. Now, I just, how many times have we been in conversations where someone's word just made you feel small or drained? I mean, it's not a good feeling. It's not. And on the flip side of that, have you ever had somebody speak life into you, to just compliment you or encourage you? And it was something that stayed with you for days or weeks or even years. I mean, that is such a beautiful thing when that happens. And in fact, I'll just really quickly, I want to demonstrate the power of this right now. Hi, Jesse, would you come up here? Dude, can you get up here already? Come on. Dude, I'm trying to make a demonstration here, and you're acting like an idiot. Would you stop? Just go back to your seat. Okay, come here, Jesse. Come back real quick. Jesse was in on this, obviously, because that would have been really rude. But even Jesse, even knowing that you knew it was coming, I mean, how did that make you feel?
I couldn't meet your eyes before that happened. Yeah. Not good.
Those of you guys like listening to it in the room, was it uncomfortable, right? At some level, it was like, whoa, what's going on here? Who's this dude they asked to come speak? And he's like ripping apart Jesse all of a sudden with it. So that's the negative side of it. But Jesse, I just want to tell you, this is for real. Dude, I love you so much. I have enjoyed getting to be a partner with you, leading worship, writing songs together. Like I've shared before, that I have been playing music for a long time, and that you have inspired me to be a better musician. You've made me better as a guitar player, and it's been a true gift to be your friend. I'm so grateful for you. Yeah. So how different was that, right? It's such a different thing. And so it's like, this is the power we hold every time we open our mouths. Right? That was really hard for me to actually say those negative things to you, because you know how much I care about you. But like, Jesse, I'm going to do this. Are you okay? But our words can build up, or they can tear down, and we can do that so quickly with the things that we say. And our words are not neutral. This just proves our words are not neutral. They either speak life or they speak death. I promise there'll be no more dramatic things like that as we come. So Proverbs 12:18 says, "There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." So those rash words, like something I just said to Jesse, when we speak in anger or frustration or just whatever that was, they're really like thrusting a sword into someone's heart. I mean, that's really the damage we're doing to people. But when we choose our words wisely, they can really bring healing and restoration and love. Like, I loved saying that to Jesse, and it built a bond between us and connected us. Even though I've said similar things to you before, it just felt good saying that. So what's our action step with this? I think our first action step here in this section is that I will reflect on the words I speak. That I'll be mindful of the power that my words carry, that I'm going to aim to speak life-giving words. And that's because our words do have the power of life and death. Proverbs also talks about the power of restraint. Hopefully I won't kick that over. Kind of knowing when to speak or when to not speak. And you might be thinking, well, if my words have so much power, shouldn't I just be talking all the time? Not really. And Proverbs teaches us that wisdom is found not only in what we say, but when we speak or when we choose not to speak. And Proverbs 10:19 says, when words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. And this wisdom is also echoed in the New Testament. And James 1:9 tells us, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. And notice the order here. It's like listen first and then speak second. But how often do we get that backwards, right? I find myself sometimes struggling just to let that person finish speaking because I got this wonderful thing I have to say and I want to talk over them. But really, in today's world, in this nonstop communication, social media, texting, it never sleeps. Like, really, this verse hits home for me because the more we talk, the more likely we're going to say something stupid, right? The more we talk, the more likely we're going to say something stupid. It's basic math, and apparently I'm a math genius. So to be honest, I mean, have you ever said something in the heat of the moment that you just like later went, oh, and just regretted that you said it? I know that I have. I've lived long enough to see that a lot. There have been times that I've let these sharp words fly at my wife or my kids, and I can see it instantly. And it's this look. They're not saying anything, but it's this look of just like, why did you say that? And the face shows the hurt. They don't even have to say anything. And it just speaks volume about the pain of this, my careless word that I just let out there fly, what it has caused. And I've also seen this in the professional context of my life. I own a marketing agency, thus kind of alluding to what I was saying before. But like I have let my mouth has caused me great pain, not only relationally, but also it's had financial consequences. I'll share one of my lessons. One of the reasons why this kind of stuff is really important for us to just kind of get. A few years ago, I was in this heated argument with the CEO of a company where I was a shareholder in. There were some things that the CEO was doing that, there's some values misalignment, and there's some stuff that they were doing that I just didn't really approve of just in general. It was just not good character. But instead of dealing it in an appropriate way, I really kind of let my being annoyed at him and my anger kind of get in the way. And we were in a conversation and things got ramped up. And then I said things to him that in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have said. And the outcome of that was because I was merely a shareholder in this company. He was a CEO. I was, over the course of the next couple of months, I basically was kind of restructured out of the company and my position in the company. And I lost 2/3 of the shares that I had basically in the organization. And I don't know the total number, but I do know it was at least $1 million that argument basically cost me, of just like not having restraint and, just popping off to the wrong person at the wrong time. So this is a costly lesson for me in the importance of restraint, and there's real world consequences to our words. I think this is why Proverbs in 13:3 says, "Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He opens wide his lips, comes to ruin." Our words, the reality of it is that if we're not careful, our words can get us in trouble. But like this scripture says, keeping a lid on it can keep us out of trouble. And restraint isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's also about wisdom and understanding. And Proverbs 17:27 and 28 says, "A truly wise person uses few words A person with understanding is even-tempered. Even fools are thought wise when they keep silent. With their mouths shut, they seem intelligent. There's actually some humor in this when you think about it and you read it. My grandfather used to say something very similar. He said, better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. And I remind myself of this every time I'm tempted to post my opinion on a social media post. I'm about to remind people that I really am a fool. Sometimes it's just better to keep quiet and to have people think, well, maybe he's a fool, than rather open your mouth and actually prove it. But on a deeper level, this proverb is teaching us that wisdom often shows up as restraint. I mean, consider the wise people in your life, the people you truly consider to be wise in your life. Chances are they aren't the ones that are constantly talking. A truly wise person doesn't feel the need to have to comment on everything or have the last word in every single conversation. Instead, they listen, they process, and they speak only when necessary. And that's restraint. I think Jesus kind of modeled this in Matthew 27, and when he was accused before Pilate, and the Bible says, when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he gave no answer. It's hard for me to imagine this. Jesus, who had all the knowledge and power in the world, he chose silence in face of false accusations, and his silence wasn't weakness, it was actually strength. He knew when to speak, and he knew when to remain quiet. So as we go about our day, let's remember the value of just hitting the pause button before we say something, before we speak. Let's be quick to listen and slow to speak. And when you're not sure what to say, it's okay to be silent. So our action step here is, I will restrain my response. I will restrain my response. So before you speak, especially in potentially tense situations, just take a deep breath. Count to 5, maybe 10, maybe 15, and use that moment to ask yourself, is what I'm about to say necessary? Is it kind? Is it true? Is it even helpful? If it doesn't meet those criteria, I would just consider holding your tongue and not saying anything. And you might be surprised how this small act of restraint can really transform your conversations and your relationships. And who knows, you might even be mistaken as a wise person. All right, so let's talk about how words impact our relationships. We've seen the value of restraint in our speech, but where does, I think, wisdom matter most? I think it matters in our relationships. The restraint we practice becomes really crucial when emotions run high and conflicts arise. And it's in these moments when the people closest to us are the chaos and or have the greatest impact of the things that we say. So let's explore a little bit of this and what the Bible says about it. We're going to jump into actually the New Testament first. In James 3, 5 and 6, it says, likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. This part just blows me away. A tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. It's pretty crazy to think about the destructive power of our tongue. Our words may have the power to spark destructive fires, but Proverbs 15:1 actually tells us that we also have the power to extinguish them. It says, a gentle answer deflects anger. And then it says, but harsh words make tempers flare. Now, I want to make a quick important note and point about gentleness in the midst of this. And my friend Tom Miller and I were talking about this recently, that in the Bible, gentleness isn't weakness. It's actually strength under control. And people often misunderstand this. They think being gentle means being a pushover, but that's really not it at all. Weak people actually can't be gentle. They're just weak. It's the strong people who have the capacity for true gentleness. And when you're strong, but choose not to use that forcefully against others, that's actually gentleness. It's having that power to actually speak harshly, but you choose not to. It's that having that ability to dominate a conversation, but deciding to listen instead. And that's the kind of gentleness that in our speech that's not just admirable, but it's powerful. And it really is a sign of true wisdom and self-control. Now I want you to think about the last argument that you had. What if instead of firing back with harsh words, you responded gently, decided not to say anything, just walked away maybe sometimes? I'm reading another story of my ability to get myself in trouble with my words, because it's been a challenge for me over my life. But about 15 years ago, this is actually a scenario where God actually helped me. I was in another heated discussion. I'm in a lot of stressful environments in what I do for work. I was with a fellow board member with another company, another organization. This board member was known to kind of have a sour temper, and so the table was kind of going back and forth at each other, and he said a few things my direction, and I was ready to let him have it, and I wanted to let him have it. I mean, I felt he was fully justified for me to unload on him. But then this idea, it's funny, I'd been reading in Proverbs, and this idea came to my mind of Proverbs 15:1, and so I took a deep breath. And instead of saying what I felt like he deserved, I told him, which wasn't not godly by any means whatsoever. I softened my tone. I also softened my posture, and I tried to see things from his perspective. You know what happened next? It actually got worse. For about 5 minutes. My fact that I wasn't fighting with him made him even more angry, and it ramped way up, and I just continued in my posture, and he finally came back down to the ground, and we were able to find common ground. So it doesn't always turn it down right away. But Proverbs 15:1 does remind us that our words really can be like a thermostat. They can really set the temperature of our interaction. It's hard to fight with somebody who's not going to fight with you, right? It really is. It's hard to argue with somebody who's not arguing back. And it's hard to be hateful towards somebody who's being really loving and kind back to you. So when we choose not to add the fuel to the fire, a lot of us, there have been times in my life that it's I'm just going to make this worse. I'm just going to make this worse. I keep putting fuel on the fire. But when we refuse to do that, we really do help extinguish the conflict, and we don't fight. Proverbs 26:20 talks about this, and this is, for a lack of wood, the fire goes out, and where there is no whisperer, quarreling ceases. And like I said, I'm going to be honest, this isn't easy. I think I'm a funny dude. I like to make snarky remarks. It's something that I've been working on my whole life. And I'm really good, unfortunately, at ripping people to shreds. And I can do it very quickly and very stealthily. It's not a very godly thing. It's not something I'm proud of. I probably should have been a trial lawyer, but I'm not. And it's so tempting to do it. But this is the part where just having the Holy Spirit and the restraint that comes from being spiritually mature and having self-control. Because sometimes, people deserve it, but they don't deserve it from you. It's hard. So Proverbs 18:6-7 warns, a fool's lips walk into a fight, and his mouth invites a beating. The fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are a snare to his soul. I have lived this out. I am going to go on the record, and I have verified the truth of this scripture from both sides. And so, like I said, this is not a good thing. It's something that we need to work on. So harsh words in our conflict don't just hurt others. The reality is they hurt you as well. They backfire and hurt us too. So what's the action step we can take here? Is that I will apply gentleness in my next difficult conversation. I want to really quickly, this is kind of part of that last part, and talk about gossip. I called gossip the silent destroyer. We can't really talk about the power of words without addressing this aspect of gossip, because Proverbs 16:28 says, a dishonest man spreads strife, and a whisperer separates close friends. The reality is gossip, no matter how small, creates division. It creates mistrust and tensions, even amongst the closest of friends. I mean, how many friendships, families, churches, work environments have been torn apart by rumors or half-truths? It may seem like a small thing, this passing comment, hey, Matt, did you hear about so-and-so? And it's just like, oh, it's such a dainty morsel. And you're like, no, tell me, right? And then you're like, hey, Callan, did you hear? Like, it just like, that's how that stuff spreads, right? You know? But once the gossip's out there, the damage is done. It's like hard to undo it, right? It's that wildfire kind of concept. And so it's almost nearly impossible to stop. So guarding our words are not just refraining from harmful speech, but but it's also stopping the spread of gossip. So as followers of Christ, we're called to be people who build up and not tear down. And so my action step with this little sub point here is that I will guard my conversations by avoiding gossip. So the next time someone starts to gossip, like, hey, did you hear? Or did you know? Like, that's usually how it begins. Change the subject. Don't engage in the conversation, or speak something positive about that person that's being discussed. Just don't participate in it. All right, so wisdom in speech. That's the next kind of theme that we're covering here. Wise and fitting words. We've explored the power of words, our need for restraint, and how they impact relationships. Let's dive into this wise and fitting speech idea. So Proverbs 25:11 gives us this beautiful image. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. That's the right words spoken at the right time aren't just effective. This scripture says they're precious. They're like a setting of silver. But notice the phrase here, this fitly spoken. And it's not just about saying good things. Good things are good. But about saying the right thing at the right time in the right way. Saying the right thing at the right time in the right way. And this idea of timing and appropriateness is crucial. And in Proverbs 15:23, it says, to make an apt answer is a joy to a man, and a word in season, how good it is. Again, have you ever heard someone say exactly what you needed to hear, right when you needed to hear it? That's the joy of that timely word. Something you needed to hear right when you needed to hear it. And it's that power to lift your spirit and to bring healing and change your perspective. So how do we cultivate this ability to kind of speak wisely and fittingly? How do we cultivate this? I think Proverbs 15:28 kind of gives us a clue here. It says, the heart of the righteous ponders how to answer. The heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. So wise speech actually begins with careful thought. It's not about having a quick comeback or always having something to say. Sometimes it's just about pausing and considering and then speaking. You can see there's kind of a theme here in all of this, that the general rule of thumb for us as it relates to words is like, slow your roll, buddy. Think about what you're about to say and decide if this has value in what you're bringing to the situation. And then wise speech is also characterized by honesty and truthfulness. Proverbs 24:26 says, whoever gives an honest answer kisses the lips. It's kind of a weird one. But really truthful and well-spoken words, and I felt this not in a weird way with Jesse, truthful, well-spoken words are welcome, and there's an intimacy there, right? There's an intimacy that comes with that. They build trust and they deepen relationships. And, to be clear, speaking wisely isn't just about saying nice things. Sometimes it means speaking hard truths, right? And so, however, if we're called to do this, we're called to speak the truth in love. Paul echoes this wisdom, again, it's not just about what we say, it's how we say it. In Ephesians 4:29, he instructs us, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such that is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. And this aligns really well with what we've been learning in Proverbs about this fitting speech. Paul is reminding us that our words should always aim to build up others and be appropriate for the situation. And in Colossians 4:6, he tells us, let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. Ephesians 4:15, he gives us this reminder about balancing truth and love in our speech. Is speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ. And Paul's teachings echo this wisdom of Proverbs in reinforcing the importance of timely, truthful, gracious, and loving speech. And this consistency across the scriptures from the Old Testament to the New, is really crucial for us to grab onto, and these wise words in our walk as believers. So our action step here for this one is, I will pause and ponder before speaking. Pause and ponder. When you're about to say something, just consider if your words are appropriate for the situation. And do they reflect wisdom? And do they reflect grace? Here's a crucial thought with this. The reality of it is our words flow out of what's inside of us. Our words flow from Matthew talks about this in Matthew 12:34. For out of abundance of our heart, the mouth speaks. So if we want to speak wisdom and grace, it starts with actually cultivating that inside of our own lives. We say what we say actually reflects what's going on inside of us. You guys have heard that phrase, hurt people, right? They say hurtful things because that's what's kind of that hurt, and there's stuff going on inside of us. So if we're filled with bitterness and anger and selfishness, it's going to come out. It's going to come out in the way that we talk, in the way that we communicate. But if we're filled with God's love and his peace and his grace, our words are going to reflect that too. It's going to come out in those things. So as we wrap up, I want to circle back to where we started. Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. The Message paraphrase says, words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose. So here's the $1 million question. What kind of fruit do you want your words to produce? What kind of fruit do you want your words to produce? So we've talked about the power of words. Our words carry the power of life and death, capable of building up and tearing down. We've talked about the value of restraint. Sometimes the wisest choice is just to remain silent. True wisdom often shows up in that kind of restraint. We talked about the impact on our relationships, and that in our conflicts and daily interactions, our words can either escalate it or bring peace and healing. And then the wisdom and prudence in our speech when we're called to speak with discernment, choosing words that are timely, truthful, and reflect the grace that is in our hearts. But here's the most important thing. Romans 10:9 and 10 tells us, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. These are the most powerful words you can ever speak. If you haven't confessed those words with your mouth, I would just encourage you to do so. It will be a journey that you will never regret. They're the most powerful words that you can ever say that could come out of your mouth. So let's commit to using our words to bring life, to build up, speak peace. Let's practice restraint, and knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. And above all, let's use our words to confess Jesus as Lord and to share his love with others. Let's pray together. God, we thank you for your goodness. We thank you for the power that you have in the words that you give us in the Bible. We thank you that you give us the ability to control these things, to give us this self-control that we need. And pray that you teach us to speak life in those around us, to reflect your wisdom and grace and truth in every conversation that we're in. May our speech be a witness to your love in the world and be an encouragement to those that we encounter. We love you and we thank you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.